Hello, all you YouTube chess lovers, and thanks again for joining me here on my channel on Steve Sturgill's Chess TV channel here on YouTube. And I know last time I said I probably wasn't going to do it, guys, make another video on the Saemisch King's Indian. Unfortunately, as is my habit, I ran into some lines that are just staggeringly awesome, and I'm going to have to go ahead and divulge these top secret lines. I don't think any of the Super GMs, IMs, or middle of the road pack 2500 plus GMs want you guys knowing about, because you're probably going to just crush them in your next tourney or tournament. If you can remember these lines and these ideas, you'll probably literally beat just about anybody, or at least draw with someone probably, you know, 2 to 3 to 400 more elo points than you. So, but having said that, I mean, that's neither here nor there. It's just the fact that these lines are incredibly hard to refute and incredibly dangerous for black if he chooses to enter the King's Indian against white. So let's get started. Got two or three main lines that we want to take a look at today. And so I want to talk about some key concepts also in the so of course starts off d4, knight f6, c4, g6, preparing to fianchetto the bishop to g7. Knight c3 is a standard move. There goes the bishop. And e4 can be played now. Obviously, it should be played there. We could play an immediate bishop g5, which is quite interesting. And we could also even play the immediate knight f3. And these are all very, very quality moves, but I prefer just the standard e4 immediately. And again, we are looking to play f3 and entering a standard Sämisch King's Indian. Black plays d6. And here I have two different lines that we're going to look at. We're going to start with my immediate bishop g5 out idea. Similar to if you don't do that, it's kind of like playing a pseudo-French in the sense that that bishop on c1 is just not that active. I mean, it's still controlling that diagonal, but it's not outside of the pawn chain, and thus ideas like an immediate f4, I mean, they wouldn't cripple the bishop on g5, but they would pretty much tell it, okay, you either have to exchange on f6, or you have to go move back to h4 if you were choosing to close the position with an immediate f4. So there's lots of technical ideas that you can work out in these types of positions. There's a lot of creativity. You know, you could play the immediate b3, the immediate a4. There's lots of weird, very cool, creative ideas. Even almost now in this early stage of playing a. But anyway, so we'll get to that later. But knight d7. Immediate bishop d3, just a very, very solid approach. It's not necessarily the best theoretical move in this position, but I believe that it's just a very, very solid way to play this position. So black here will probably play something like the immediately aggressive c5, and again, you can certainly take there, and that enters a very, very different type of game, which I personally do not enjoy. If you do, by all means, go ahead and take c5, and you can enter in a very, very sharp line that to me simply gives black too much easy counterplay. So I prefer to go ahead and close the position up by playing d5. Black certainly has other moves here, but he can certainly castle, and we've already talked about that. But in this case, he chooses to play the poison pawn variation. Queen to b6, a very, very good move for black here. And we're just going to play the very quiet rook b1. Very, very common, again, and classy move in playing the Sämisch. Okay, black's going to play, for example, knight d7 to e5. Bishop e2. No need to give that bishop up yet. We're going to go ahead and centralize it to the e2 square, controlling d3, f3, and keeping a very, very tight rein on this diagonal here. I wish I could draw lines like the fancy GMs can, but I can't, so I'm just moving the cursor. The poor man's line. A moving cursor, okay. Black here wisely is kicking the bishop. And here, guys, I found the magnificent bishop takes knight on f6. And you're thinking, Steve, that's not that hot. Come on. Hold your horses. We'll see where this is going. Bishop takes back, obviously. And here, I've played the immediate f4. Knight drops back to d7. Knight f3, developing. g5. And here, guys, what's the money move here? Do we want to take g5? Not really, because the black's just going to take back with the pawn. And now he has ideas of pushing, castling, at some point bringing the he's going to probably threaten the a file, or even bring the queen back to d8 and look to get active on the g and h files. So that's not going to work. No need to sack the knight on g5. That would be a silly move. So the money move is e5. And you're thinking, well, but Steve, that's protected 3 different ways. It is, but what's black to really do here? Black's going to take that pawn, which is the strongest thing he can do here. And now, we're not taking e5, we're not taking g5, we are pushing that pawn. That's a weird looking little move, isn't it? But black now has some serious issues. Ideas like playing g4 are really not working here for black. So he pushes e4, but that's not working either, because we're going to take with knight c3 to e4. And now we're kicking that bishop instantly. But instead, black queen comes over with a check. We block with that knight, leaving the other knight on e4. So knight f3, d2. Black bishop centralizes to d4. Queen to c2, a very interesting quiet move. And as you can see, we're preparing b4. Amongst other things, we're also keeping the black queen off of a4. And we're sort of quietly x-ray supporting the f5 pawn. So it's a very little interesting quiet move. Black castles. And now I want you guys to notice something. The black king is quite lonely over there on g8. He has a rook that, quite frankly, is not really doing anything. I mean, the rook can't even maneuver in front of the king. Can't even get over around the king. So as of right now, honestly, theoretically speaking, the king only has the bishop on d4 actively protecting it, and the knight on d7, which can hop in to f6 at some point and maybe do something, but it's not, I wouldn't even say it's actively defending the king. So really, he only has the bishop. He has the bishop and, okay, the 2 pawns on g5 and h6, but that's some pretty meager protection in my book. So here we're going to go the immediate h4, threatening the pawn, obviously. Pawn takes. And here, guys, although Although b4 is really good, and we'll look at that in a minute, and there's nothing wrong with playing that move, I found the immediate rook takes h4, and I think you're starting to see that the black king's not that comfortable. And so black bishop goes back to g7 to shore that up. Now b4 takes rook b3. Again, we saw this in so many of the other Sämisch videos that we covered. Rook b3 is very, very common in the Sämisch, and it's a very important move. It's a very important rank for that rook to control and be active on. And we can see already that the rook is lusting to come to g3 and absolutely pressurize g7. King over. And here I found the immediate, this is not what was recommended, by the way. What was recommended to me was c5. And that's an excellent move, so don't feel bad if you found c5. That's an excellent, excellent move. It's absolutely keeping a very strong winning edge for white, but far more immediate. And I can promise you, if your opponent sees this on move 22 in the King's Indian, a double column of rook power on the H file, a bishop on e2, a queen on c2, a knight on e4 and d2, they're not going to feel very comfortable. Not to mention the coup de grace. Queen comes to b6. And guys, I'm going to give you here about 20 seconds to look at the position and decide what the money shot is right here in this position. I guarantee most of you will get it wrong, but don't feel bad. This is a super GM level type move. Well, okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's definitely at least a strong IM level move. Go ahead and look at that and ponder. Okay, what's the move, guys? f6. Notice it's protected 3 different ways. The problem is black can ill afford to really do a whole lot about it. I mean, he's certainly going to take it. That's not what I'm saying. But in the taking of it, he's going to have a very new... he's still going to have a severe problem, and that is those rooks on the H file. Not to mention, again, the queen. I want you guys to notice she is X-raying H7. This is a very, very important concept in chess, the concept of X-rays. Because what you're really saying with an X-ray, guys, is that you're essentially 2 tempi away, usually at the most, sometimes 3. But generally, you're only 2 tempi away from having that piece actively controlling that square, actively possibly coming to that square. So anyway, so here, black takes with the knight. And I'm going to give you guys another 20 to 30 seconds here. What is the next money move? Are we going to take that knight with the knight? Are we going to maneuver the bishop somewhere? Are we going to maneuver the other knight to a different square? Are we going to maneuver the queen to a different square? Let's just take a few moments and think about what the next money shot is. Or money move, rather. So give yourself a huge pat on the back if you found rook takes h6 check. Obviously giving up the rook. Bishop takes. Rook takes. King comes to g7. And here, once again, guys, what is the next money move? I'm going to give you guys about 25 seconds. Just go ahead and look at the position and think about what's the best play for white. By far. Like, there's, like, the closest second's like over 5 points lower in rating. And yes, the black queen is thinking of coming to g1, but we'll get to that in a second. knight takes f6, and black is in a unique quandrum because, okay, if the black queen comes to g1 now, which she will, we're just going to block with the knight, not the bishop, guys. If you try to guard here with the bishop, you're going to be in a world of pain because that will lead to check e3 and goodbye rook on h6, and your win just went to a I'm defending for my very life, probably going to crash and burn in several moves after that. So please do not make that mistake of trying to block with the bishop. So please just play this knight f1. Black rook comes over. Here we're going to go ahead and trade those rooks off. And instead of taking here, guys, that's not the money move for black. He's going to come down threatening the queen on f5. We're going to take that bishop right off. Rook takes. And here, guys, this is the best continuation. There is another very good continuation, but this is by far the best that I could find. So knight h5 check. Rook takes. Bishop takes. We do not recapture with the queen. We're threatening mate at some point on the f or g file. King comes over wisely. It'd be easy to blunder that situation and go to the back rank. Here the best shot by far was g4. Queen over. g5 check. King takes bishop. g6 discovered. King goes back, and here it's not too hard to see. You don't have to be an IM to see that the next best shot is g takes f7. Queen check. Go ahead and guard, block with the knight. Trade those queens off. Brand new queen. And black already, of course, would have resigned, but we can go ahead and play this out for a little bit. Take a look at this mate. And that, guys, is checkmate in 45 moves, playing against a 3200-ish elo monster. That is literally a, I'm using Komodo primarily, guys. I'm not gonna lie about that to do my analysis. And so, that's a mate in 45. And if we back up to, let's see, where was it? I think it was, we're almost there. Let's see. Yes, right here. I guarantee you're gonna have somebody play this next move in a blitz, in a rapid or a blitz, or even in the classical chess if they just fail to calculate correctly. And here they are going to take that rook with the king, not seeing the immediate mate threats in the position. And they are queen h7 check, king escapes to g5, knight f3 check, giving up the knight, of course, on f6, queen h6, king f5, queen g5 check, king e4, and the coup de grace. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Queen e5 checkmate. Guys, if that's what black plays, that is mate in 31. And none, I want you to understand, except for that last little king taking the rook blunder, none of these moves were bad for black. They really weren't. Black did not blunder his way to a 45 move checkmate, being the victim, or on the receiving end rather. I'm telling you, these are very, very dangerous lines. Very, very sharp, incredibly unbalancing positional chess with plenty of tactics to go around. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to blitz through this game one more time really quickly. and try to give you guys just a quick look at it again. Here we take the knight. Here we play the incredibly enticing immediate f4. Here we play e5, threatening the bishop immediately. Black is compelled to take. And instead of taking back here, this is critical, we push f5. Black is going to be compelled to play e4 or some other not very hot move, like maybe queen d8 or something, or maybe castles. Is probably not that great here, actually. In fact, yeah, I think if black castles here, guys, let me check just a second. Yeah, that's a decent move here, but it's not going to save black. I can assure you, black is still going to be every much the victim in that line as he was in the other. But at any rate, here he tries to kick the knight. We recapture with knight c3, takes e4. Okay, and here I'll just kind of, again, that's a key move, guys. This quiet queen c2. And we could have played b4. That was a very, very strong and good move in that position. But h4 is really, really putting the screws to black immediately. It's telling black you don't have any firepower on your king side. Or you ought to, but you don't. Black is pretty much compelled to take. It's going to be much worse if they don't. For example, guys, here, if black was dumb enough, I don't know, to play f6 here, or the god-awful g4, white would just crawl into his camp so quick it'd be like a hurricane. And here, instead of b4, which is an excellent move, I played the much more provocative rook smashes h4. Bishop is, man, if they don't go back there, guys, they are going to get mated on a stick. I promise you that. So black is compelled to play bishop g7 here. Now we play b4, kicking the queen, buying some tempo. Rook lift to b3, key in the Sämisch. And I'm sure that would be a fantastic normal move to play here, guys. The immediate rook g3. Absolutely wonderful. But we're going to play the immediate rook h3, which is just, I think, much more powerful still than playing rook g3, which is still very, very good, strong chess. Don't feel bad if you found that in the position or if you play that. I just think this is much stronger. So, queen comes back to b6. f6 is the money shot here, guys. Totally changing the position. Knight takes, and instead of recapturing with the knight, the money move is rook smashes through, exposing the king. Black takes, we take back. He threatens. Here we leave the rook on pre, obviously. If, again, we saw that if the king takes, he gets mated instantly and early. So that's not the move. Instead, the black queen comes to g1. We block sedately and quietly with the knight. And we get this type of position. Again, taking with the bishop is mission critical. Do not just take with the queen. Still winning, but much, much more elongated and drawn out. g4 is just so powerful in this position. And then here the money shot is g takes f7. And it's just about all over here, guys. That's about the best black can do. New queen. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful day. And that is checkmate in 45. Okay, so let's go back and take a look at game number 2 in the Saemisch King's Indian. Okay, starts off the same, obviously. And here, well, let's see. We'll see if there's another branch here that... Yeah, instead of the immediate bishop g5, which is excellent, and we already looked at that line. Nothing beautiful. I kind of prefer that line. Here I found the immediate f3, the old traditional quiet way of playing the Sämisch. Nothing wrong with that. Of course, we can still get the bishop out. That's not an issue, but this is a little more of the old way of playing, which is still a very, very good way of playing the Sämisch. And so here, black castles, very sanely, just a very excellent, I don't know if you could call it a quiet move and or a developing move at the same time, perhaps. Okay, here we're going to play bishop out. One of my favorite bishop moves is developing to d3, as you guys know. e5, and again, we are going to push. We do not play all that crappy takes, queen takes. You can get a win in that, guys. I don't doubt that, but it's usually quite slowish, extremely dull, extremely positional. If you like playing boring positional, and I'm not saying positional chess is boring, please don't confuse the two issues. I'm saying if you like playing positional chess that also happens to be slow and dull and very hard to get a dramatic change in the position and get a real initiative, go ahead and play all that crappy d takes e, queens come off. And if you like playing chess like that, be my guest. I don't want any part of it. It's ugh. Anyways, we're gonna push here 9 times out of 10, as you well know. So d5, knight h5. That's a very, very good and typical move for black in the King's Indian in general, and in the Sämisch in particular. Trying to get active and trying to get sneaky ideas of the queen over, which is a very legitimate threat. In fact, we're about to see that in action, so you'll have a good idea what to do when black plays this line. This feels scary, seeing the black queen come down to h4 and give check, but it's not really scary at all when you know what to play. So here's what we're going to do. Bishop e3. Love seeing the bishops here lined up on the d and e3 squares. And I'm just going to point out, guys, that, well, that's the next move, queen check. But for example, let's just say black played a silly move here, like, I don't know, like that. In general, this is a very, very powerful move. Now, it's not so, I'm not saying play that in this particular order or position because you haven't developed the knight. I would rather get the knight out to e2 first, or preferably even at some point f3, and then bring that bishop in. But I'm just pointing out that this formation of the bishops on e2 and e3 is very, very common in playing advanced lines in the Sämisch, and it's an incredibly powerful structure. Because when anytime you have the bishops lined up vertically like this, oops, sorry about that. It's just an incredibly powerful array because you're controlling squares. Like for example, here you're controlling d1, d2, d3, d4, etc. And you're playing f1, f2, f3, f4. And the scope of the bishops in that formation. Plus, you're leaving the other d file open for movement with the queen, for example. I hate that bell sound. Or the rook. So at any rate, that's not the move. So I just want to briefly mention that. So here again, black's going to play queen h4 in this line, checking the king. And we're not going to play some weird king shambles off to d2. I might look at that at some point if I get really, really bored, but we're going to play sane chess right here, guys. I don't want you guys playing a ridiculous, crazy system. So there's nothing wrong with g3 here immediately kicking the queen back. She's got to go all the way back to e7. And now we play queen d2. Another decent move in the position here, guys, would be, for example, bishop c2 would be decent. Knight ge2 is an idea in the position. a3 is quite decent. But by far, my analysis here is showing that queen d2 is just the strongest, most practical, logical move that you can possibly make in this position. So anyway, so queen d2 is the move. Bishop d7, preparing to have some kind of influence and scope, perhaps on a4, certainly on the diagonal, maybe at some point coming to h3, etc., etc. Also making room for the bishop or the queen to move around. It's just a really good, strong centralizing move. It's not like dramatic or anything. You're not threatening anything immediately. So here I found bishop c2 was very interesting, uh, and um, it's interesting for a variety of ways. Without getting too technical, this pawn on e4, guys, at some point is going to probably be exchanged and pushed, or just taken and captured. And if that's the case, then there's now ideas of something like queen d2 forming a battery. And obviously, if you could ever get the queen, if you can just imagine, let's pretend that pawn wasn't there. Let's pretend pawn g6 was down here somewhere, like say on the g5 or g4 square. At some point, this idea would have extremely dangerous merit of coming to h7 with lethality or extremely forceful ideas. Anyways, here Black played a6, a nice solid quiet move, obviously preventing the knight from coming into b5, although the bishop already prevents that. I'm just saying, but that's an extra way. Now there's ideas of b5 on the board, c5 or c6, etc., etc. But probably Black is going to play a5 if given the chance, and then maybe knight a6 or what have you, or knight d7 at some point. So knight ge2 is the move here, obviously preparing castles. b5, we just talked about that as a distinct possibility, and there Black plays it. And here, guys, g4 is a good move. You could play the somewhat provocative and not so accurate c takes b. That's really not that good a move. You could play b3, shoring that up. Also not a very good move. Bishop b3 is even probably more horrible at this point for the tempo that it would lose in the game. So here we're just going to ignore that pawn attack and castle. Although again, g4 is very, very strong in that position, but I here looked at it, I played it both ways, and I just prefer to get the king safe immediately. We can always play g4 later. There's nothing that's going to come in and change that dynamic or that possibility. So just get your king safe on move 13, and you can always play b4 later. You know, here Black go ahead takes on c4. Now we play g4. See, so you're still getting g4, and I just feel like get your king safe. And here I will say I found the very interesting king h1, and what is interesting about it is that while Komodo doesn't see this as an immediately powerful move, I believe if my computer was much, much stronger, this would have a lot more not elo rating, but evaluation strength, because what it is doing, it is trading the power of the immediacy of a regular chess move with the long-term sort of tempo and positional ideas in terms of saving tempo by preparing the G file. What you're doing with an idea of king h1 long-term is that you're getting your king very, very safe, and just as, if not more importantly, in this particular example, you're preparing obviously ideas of the rooks doubling on the g2, g1 square, queen coming at some point maybe to d3, also targeting the g file, etc., etc., the queen coming to g2 or h3 at some point, h2, etc., etc. So this has a very interesting, powerful idea in it, and we might look at this line later if we get time, but I just wanted to point that out. That's not, again, the move that Komodo readily sees as the best in the position, but I think it has an incredible merit long term. So if you want to play that way, it's a beautiful way to play. But here we are going to play the very provocative, immediate g4. Knight goes to f6. Knight g3. a5. Bishop d1. And for one thing, Um, you may be wondering, what does bishop d1 do? Well, again, for one thing, it's x-raying that diagonal so that at some point, if the knight were to say to take g4, then we might then have weird ideas of pushing f4. I don't know. For example, it's just, if nothing else, it's getting the bishop to a subtly better square, and it's allowing the queen and other pieces to sort of maneuver around and have some better coordination harmony. So black is going to go ahead and play the very aggressive a4, and here bishop e2 turned out to be about the best move in the position. Another really decent move here, guys, would have been to play again king h1, which I pointed out earlier. So here Komodo is recognizing that it has a lot more merit now. And rook b1, there's always a gorgeous move in the Sämisch. If you're around this stage of development, I don't want to say always literally. I think you guys are smart enough to know what I mean. So rook b1 here is excellent, but bishop b2 is about equal. So we'll go ahead and play bishop b2 here. Black plays a3 again, ultra aggressive, and here we are going to play rook ab1. Black comes to c8. Aren't a lot of great moves for black, honestly, in this position. He could bring the rook down. He could bring the knight to a6. He could try to play the ultra provocative c5, I suppose, and get taken en prise or something like that. You could play rook e8, but again, these moves, they don't really do much for black's position. They don't really change anything dynamically in the position. So anyways, rook c8. Here, bishop takes c4. What else? Pawn takes, rook takes. And here we see a similar idea to most Sämisches. Instead of the rook being on b3, he's active here on the second rank on b2. And here that knight comes down to a6. Again, what else? And here, guys, we're not going to take that with the bishop. That would just be trading a piece for nothing. Let sleeping dogs lie. g5 kicks the knight. Knight e8. h4. And I think, just to your naked eye, guys, black is in deep hooey and doesn't know it. Again, we have active, powerful pawns coming up the g and h file. At any minute, that king could go to g2, and we have ideas of rook h1, rook b1, etc., or queen up at some point. And how does black defend all these threats? It's going to be very hard. So let's see how the game develops here. Queen d8, king g2. Again, we just mentioned that, and indeed, he's going to go to king g, the second rank. f6, getting very desperate now for some type of counter attack. Knight b5, and the idea here, guys, obviously, is that if black is dumb enough, we're going to take his rook on a7, and if he thinks he can protect that one, we're probably going to take the other one on c8 at some point. Black is compelled to trade off the bishop for the horse, and instead of taking with the bishop, which is a second class move, it's still very decent, but Komodo shows that it's significantly weaker than taking with the rook. So let's go ahead and play the best in the position when possible, or when logical, when practical. Knight back to the 8th rank, looking a bit ridiculous. And now, guys, just take a momentary snapshot, excuse me, of black. Black literally looks like he was playing chess 960, Fisher random, and looks rather embarrassingly ridiculous. He has a rook on c8, cut off by a knight, a queen on d8, a knight again on e8, and a king directly fronted only by a bishop on g7. I would say black is not for choice. I think you all would agree. And here we're going to play rook a1. And I will mention, guys, that while there are a lot of different ways to play a Sämisch and a King's Indian for that matter, be mindful that in positions like this, White doesn't have the immediate attack that I demonstrated in the other line, just ramming up the H file. That does not quite work here. You could... Maybe this looks interesting because you're thinking, well, black is pretty much compelled to take, and we're going to force that bishop back. And we're going to go ahead and take that guy. Bishop comes down. Okay, we've got a rook over there now, but the problem is, and I'm not saying this is bad chess. I believe it's good chess. It's just not great. And if you played this, how are you supposed to ultimately blast through black's armory? His defenses here, they're decent. I'm not saying they're incredibly powerful, but they're decent enough that white now is saying, what's my game plan? How do I infiltrate black's camp? So I don't like attempting things like this when the position's just not set up for it. Here, I personally thought h takes g looks very, very interesting. Personally, I thought that looked quite intriguing. Let's see what it says. Yep, it's getting pretty interesting. Ooh, that is very provocative. Pawn f7 check. And it's starting to look like black's defenses are broken pretty badly. Notice that outside of the queen and the bishop, he doesn't have any quick means of getting down and guarding these diagonals, which are phenomenal lanes of... And when I say diagonals, I'm actually referring to white's vertical columns. You know, black has this diagonal ability with the queen, but in terms of tempo, you know, black's gonna have to waste at least one tempo to get this guy out here doing anything active on this diagonal. Granted, the knight is going to come in and be supported, but I don't know. This is looking intriguing. And here it's giving the best move for black is to take that pawn with the king. Let's see what is coming down the pipe. I think bishop b3 here looks good. Bishop e2 is interesting. Bishop d3 is quite playable. Rook c1 is definitely but potentially a good move. But I think honestly here it's giving bishop b3, king g8 as the strong continuation. And if it were me, I would have strong tendencies here to go rook h1 instantly. Just eyeballing it, not even looking at Komodo. Because now there's immediate ideas of getting the queen active. Not to mention the rook on b5 at some point, possibly coming back down. Yep, indeed Komodo's giving that as the continue. And then... For example, bishop f6 is a decent move. It's not shatteringly great. Queen c1 looks strongest here in the position now. Rook h3. Now we're seeing a rook lift, which is starting to look like a setup. Okay, rook d8. Knight e2 looks extremely powerful. Queen c6 looks very provocative, obviously. Rook b4. Again, a quiet retreat to the 4th rank here. Looks extremely tasty. interesting. It's giving knight f1 as the money move here. Or I should say best in position. It's not really a money move, but it's... Okay, well, there's some food for thought. I don't want to waste too much time, but that is a very, very interesting, provocative line. I might fully develop this, guys, and make a future video, because that's incredibly intriguing. I must say, I hadn't seen this idea. I had certainly seen the idea of h5 with the idea of h takes g6, but I hadn't seen this resource of g takes f6 as having any real merit. But it turns out here the problem is if black plays this, for example, that's not a good move, guys, in the position, and it doesn't, I want you to understand something, it doesn't look bad at all. I don't even think there's a grandmaster worth his salt that would look at that and say that black made a bad or terrible move. That looks like a totally sound, strong defensive move in that position. It doesn't look like you've committed any kind of chess sin or error. The problem is now rook a5, and black is forced to play this knight move, thus exchanging the knights. And I believe one of the key problems here is that you have the immediate rook h1 idea now. That pawn on h5 is, well, it almost forces knight f6, doesn't it? But instead, okay, these rooks are exchanged. Queen comes over instead, eyeballing h5. Rook up anyway, and I believe one of the key problems here in this position is that white has very deadly ideas now of getting that pawn to the 8th rank and queening. I mean, literally, that's not a joke. That is a real threat in this position. That pawn is gone. Rook comes back to h2, guarding the king, etc., etc. I don't want to get caught up in this line, but excuse me, time for a drink. But let's get back to the game. I think I've gone too far off topic. I apologize. It's just so hard to avoid fresh analysis and position. So again, having said all that, I want to get back to this idea of rook a1. It's just the idea that if you don't see an immediate attack, and in this particular structure on the king side, then you need to, by default, we're taught as chess players, play on the queen side. Yes, because our center is locked. We know we're not playing in the center. That's an obvious given. So we can either bust through on the king side, or we can attack and bust through on the queen side. So in this particular Sämisch that I played, I went for a queen side. Not so much attack, rather, but just shoring up the queen side. So rook comes back to b3, queen e7, a4, f5, e takes f was best here. Black pushes. The white bishop rather centralizes to d4, pretty much forcing exchanges. But black says no, I'll hang on a little bit longer and block with the knight. Which is not a great move. It's just barely adequate. And bishop e2. And again, guys, one of the ideas with bishop e2 is that aside from guarding this diagonal here, right, it is also x-raying this h5 square, so that if something happens, if there's trades here, all of a sudden, guess what? White has a gorgeous knight potentially coming to h5 with beautiful ideas in the position. Black rook forcing exchanges, and here black plays the very crafty splitting the forking rather the knight the king and the bishop. And here we're going to go ahead and trade off that bishop, and instead of this is a hard move to see, guys. I think 9 out of 10 of us lower rated players would just instantly grab that knight with the king and say, you know, no foul, no harm. Oh, and in truth, it's a very, very good move. There's nothing wrong with it at all. That is a good move. But I let it ruminate for a very, very long time, and Komodo finally came up with believing that, for whatever reason, this is a little bit stronger, a little bit more precise. This is not a strong point of contention, I just want to point that out. Here, the black rook is going to recapture on b8. And then here, guys, we're going to go ahead and push f6, protected 4 ways. Excuse me, 3. And we get the knight check, obviously in e1. We're going to, instead of taking, which is pretty bad, because if you take here, obviously the queen is going to take, and now instead of winning, you're going to be lucky to draw. So please do not panic in a position like this and go, oh, I'll just take with my rook. Guess what? This lady here will come down and smash you in a heartbeat, and now you're just playing let's stay alive. So don't do that. So white king calmly, quietly, rather pedestrian manner saunters off to g1. There's no longer a threat by the knight. Knight goes to d3, kicking our queen. She comes back down to f1. Knight takes f6, g takes f6, bishop takes. And we do not take here with the bishop. Please do not make that mistake. That is not powerful in the position. It is a good move. It is nowhere near a great move. And it cedes too much of the initiative back to black. So here we want to go ahead and force the queens off. And notice here, guys, we're just simply up a piece. This is a pleasant endgame. As long as you're careful. Rook e8, bishop g5, knight b4, rook d1, rook a8, knight e4, rook a5, knight f6 check, king f7, rook c1, threatening the c pawn on the 7th rank, knight takes d5, knight takes, rook takes, and here I thought there was a different variation here. Anyways, rook takes c7, king e6, rook e7 check, king f5, rook takes h7, rook d3, rook f7 check, king e5, king f2, rook b3, rook e7 check, king d5, rook e3, rook b2 check, king f3, rook b6, rook d3 check, king c4, rook d4 check, king c5, bishop b3, rook a6, king f4, rook a8, king g5, king c6, king takes e6, rook g8 check, king g7. And I apologize, guys, this is a much longer, slightly boring technical endgame. Rook h8, not a lot of value here in terms of our Samisch theory, or Sämisch, but I just thought I'd let you guys see it for what it's worth. Bishop g5, rook b8, h5, some really good technique on display. d5, bishop f6, rook b7 check, king g6, rook b1, h6, rook g1 check, king f7. And obviously, guys, any master on earth would have resigned quite a while ago. So this is not something you'd probably ever see. Unless the only realistic scenario that wouldn't be the case is if white was in severe time pressure and black thought, well, if I just can hang on long enough and not get mated, then I can either win or draw. So that's the only realistic scenario that I can envision. This now online, that's a wholly different matter. You've got a lot of jerks online that will play you to the bitter end regardless of how much material they're down, and it's admirable to a point, and it's also ridiculous to a point. So rook h4, rook b1, king g6, rook g1 check, bishop g5, rook f1, h7, rook f8, king g7, rook b8, h8 queen, da 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 da. And I'll just play this out. There's no need for more commentary. Here comes the mate. And this was if you're into in-game technique at all, well, there's several ways to mate here. What am I saying? I just thought King F6 was a pretty little quiet, nifty mating net type move, because what that move does, it sort of is Zwischenzugs Black's King, because now, if you didn't play that, say I played Rook. That's not it. Sorry. Say here you played Rook F3. Well, now you get this type of duel. So it's just funny. It's just visually kind of funny because you know, after White has played King F6, the only move, literally, this is why this is a mating net. The only move left in the position is King G4. Just visually, that's kind of cool. And Queen G5 mate, and that's made in 83, guys. So that type of, again, I mean, the master would have resigned like 20 moves ago. So don't necessarily think of this as a really, really long game, because if this had been at a grandmaster level, they would have shaken hands probably around move, I'm guessing 48 or 53, somewhere around there. They would have known that they were on the receiving end of a bad duel. But the point is, there's a lot of ways to play in the Sämisch, and let me see if I can find. There was one more really, really good, strong. Let's see, is that okay? We looked at that. Did we look at this ending? Did we look at this or not? Let's see, Queen C7. I don't know that we. I think this is the other game I was looking for. I think, or is it? No, we looked at this. What am I saying? Yeah, we looked at that quiet move. Again, the robust attack. Again, we looked at this whole idea of the rook smash. I think here I ended up playing another tricky variation of king immediately. Here you can play King F2. And if I'm not mistaken, here there's a variety of really intriguing moves here. If I remember, you can here play B3, A3, possibly even B4 at some point. Not at this particular juncture, but very, very soon you could play ideas of B4, A3, B4, etc. What I found intriguing here is just the visual presence that this makes on the board, seeing the immediate rooks in a power formation here on move 21. And believe you me, if you let the computer ruminate long enough on this position, it will understand that Black is facing the direst of challenges now. Again, this is just move 21. And I guarantee you, over the board, Black is going to be up the creek without a paddle, trying to find a sound idea here in the position. Because now there's ideas of knight f3. Yeah, even let's just try that. See if a oh, excuse me. I thought, yeah. See if a sack is in the works here. Maybe not quite in this position. I thought I could get away with something intriguing like this. Maybe not quite, not quite developed enough here. Yeah, that's a little preemptive for sure. But the point is, if you just play like we talked about, those more solid developing moves, this is a very, very dangerous idea in the position. And in fact, here it's giving. Well, I like G4 here a lot. I think that's a very classy, powerful move. I think this is just a raging attack now on the king side. It may not seem like it. I'll go ahead and look at this move later, guys. Maybe plop this down in a future video. Just something to think about. I just want to demonstrate how incredibly versatile and powerful White is in the Sämisch. There are so many ways to attack Black. You know, once he makes his permanent address here and this zip code on G8, In the Sämisch, it's very rare for him to have any real firepower on the king side. It's ironic, isn't it? That as soon as he gets quote unquote safe, all of his firepower is on the queen side, except for usually this bishop on g7 and sometimes a roving knight, or this quiet knight on d7. So, anyways, what was I going to show you? I was going to show you one other variation here. Yeah, here the other idea, guys, was b4, kicking the queen, and then now we take knight f2, and I think this goes down pretty much the same way. Let's see, this might be a little different than the variation we looked at earlier. Here, black felt compelled to take the queen on, to take the knight on e5, and here we take the knight back, queen takes, and we play this beautiful quiet rook h5, c takes b4, rook exchanges on b4, a5, rook drop, we bring it back again to the delicious third rank. You know, as much as I've loved rook lifts for a long time, I'm learning to really appreciate rook retreats, or I guess you could say rook drops, right? If there's such a thing as a rook lift, we can say a rook drop to be through very, very key and coming back into the position with power and dynamism. Lots of tactical ideas and positional strategies here. So rook d8, queen e4, rook a6, king f2, rook 8, rook 86, rook bh3, b6, g4, rook 8 d7, g5. Really getting hot in that kitchen now. H takes g5, queen to g4, e5, and rook h8 check. And I can promise you guys, you would see resignation on probably 80, 85, 90% of grandmasters out there. I'd say that's it. Great game, guy. I'm out. Komodo is showing right here a advantage of about 9 points. So you do the math. If you want to play somebody being down 9 points, be my guest. It's like being down a full queen. Goodbye, queen. Here we've got the queen and a bishop against two heavy pieces and a really strong minor piece, but unfortunately they're not on the right side of the board to do much. I'm going to go ahead and block them off with f6, pretty much forcing black to give it up. And again, this is just ridiculous computer defense. It means nothing in the greater scheme. After bishop g4, rook b7, d6, king g8, bishop f5, rook d7, queen g5 check, king f8, queen h6 check, king g8, queen h7 check, king f8, and the coup de grace, king h8 checkmate. Alright guys, that's going to wrap it up. We've just gone slightly longer than I expected to go, and we'll see you next time on YouTube.